Good morning. Thank you all for being patient as we got ourselves organized. I'd like to call IFC Interim Finance Committee to order on December 15th, 2022. Good morning to all of those present with us in Las Vegas and in Carson City, and as well as those listening online. I am Senator Dondero Loop, and I will be chairing the meeting today. Mr. Weber, will you please call the roll?
Former Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson, former Assemblywoman Carlton, Assemblywoman Brown May for Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Present.
Assemblywoman Dickman for former Assemblyman Levitt.
Here.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller. Assemblywoman Peters.
Here.
Former Assemblyman Roberts. Former Assemblywoman Tolles. Assemblyman Watts.
Here.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Here.
Vice Chair Monroe Moreno.
I'm here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Senator Hammond.
Here.
Senator Harris.
Here.
Senator Krasner for Senator Sievers-Gansert.
Here.
Senator Neal.
Here.
Senator Scheibel for former Senator Dennis. Senator Spearman for Senator Cannizzaro.
Here.
Senator Titus for former Senator Tatro.
Here.
Chair Dondero Loop.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Weber, and please mark the members not present as excused and those that arrive in just a minute or two as present when they arrive. Thank you very much. Before we move on with today's agenda, I would like to remind all committee members and members of the public to turn off or mute your electronic devices. If you are participating virtually, please remember to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. Also, please keep your cameras on so we can take accurate votes by the staff. There is a chat feature in Zoom, but it should only be used to communicate technical difficulties, please, with staff. All other comments should be stated on the record so that everyone can hear those. For those who are providing testimony today, please remember to state your name for the record each time you are speaking. And this is so that our staff gets this correct on the record. Lastly, I do plan on taking a lunch break today. When we get closer to that time, we will make an announcement of when it will be. We'll just make sure that we do it accordingly to the agenda. So with that, we will move on to agenda item B, public comment. And before we begin public comment, I would like to have staff provide an update on two of the items on the agenda. Mr. Thorley, would you please go ahead?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, LCB Fiscal. I'd like to provide an update to the committee members and those listening on, one update on an agenda item, and then one clarification. So first, agenda item N, Governor's Office of Economic Development. That has been withdrawn. We received the withdrawal request from the Governor's Finance Office on December 8th, which was after the agenda had gone to print, so it's not reflected on the agenda. But agenda item N has been withdrawn, so it will not be heard or discussed at today's meeting. Second, a clarification on list G, which is the ARPA work program list. G18 includes 115 work programs related to a proposed furlough payback program. In total, our office received 325 work program revisions from the Governor's Finance Office related to the proposed furlough repayment program. Only 115 of those are on the agenda today because those are the work programs that the Interim Finance Committee is required to take action on. The other 210 are either below the dollar amount threshold for IFC consideration or are from agencies that are exempt from the State Budget Act and don't have to have their work program revisions approved by IFC. So just because there's only 115 work programs on the agenda doesn't mean that the remaining 210 won't be considered. If the committee approves the 115 work programs today, the remaining 210 work programs will also be processed by the Governor's Finance Office and the Controller. And if there's any questions on those clarifications, happy to take them.
Madam Chair. Senator Goycochea. Wayne, could you?
Yes, Senator, please go ahead.
Thank you. Do we have a dollar amount for those 210 programs?
Senator Goycochea, I don't offhand. I can grab that here in just a sec and provide it for the committee. The total dollar amount for all the work programs, not to jump too much ahead into the agenda, is $35.5 million. So that's for all the furlough work programs. But I can have staff run a quick calculation on the 210.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thorley. Thanks for the update on those agenda items. We'll now move on to public comment. This is the first period of public comment. There will be another public comment at the end of today's meeting. Due to time considerations, each person providing public comment is asked to speak not more than 2 minutes. Please remember to state and spell your name for the record and begin your statement. To call in to provide testimony for public comment, please dial 669-900-6833. When prompted to provide the meeting ID, please enter 892-5578-9050 and then press pound. When prompted for a participant ID, please press pound. The call-in information is also provided on the agenda for today's meeting. So we will begin today in Las Vegas, and then we'll move to Carson City and last over the phone. So if you're in Las Vegas, if you'd like to come forward, please go ahead. Mr. Daly, please go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Chris Daly, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. NSEA has consistently sounded the alarm about educator vacancies that have ballooned across the state in recent years. As we near the middle of this school year, there are still thousands of school vacancies with even more positions being filled by long-term substitutes. Last week, the Economic Policy Institute released this report, finding the national teacher shortage is both widespread and especially severe in schools with high percentage of students of color and from low-income families. They also found the current shortage is not the result of an insufficient number of qualified teachers, but rather low pay and an increasingly stressful work environment. While we often talk about our educator shortage, we don't really have a severe shortage of teachers, just a shortage of those willing to work for 23.5% less than their college-educated counterparts. Nevada can't fill vacant positions because we aren't paying enough to be competitive. This is why we consistently articulate what Nevada must do to address this crisis: time for 20. With thousands of educator vacancies and some of the largest class sizes in the nation, time for 20 means a 20% educator raise, a $20 minimum wage for people who make schools run, and average class sizes of 20 students. We also have called on the state to do better to listen to and respect educators, addressing workplace issues like safety and inclusion of educator voice. Number 9 on agenda item H today will continue to fund a position to oversee the programmatic and evaluation initiatives of the American Rescue Plan Act, elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. This work is important, especially as data is now emerging on ARPA ESSER spending in some Nevada school districts failing to meet the moment on the biggest crisis impacting Nevada schools. In data provided by school districts, there's a strong correlation between low ARP spending on staff and high vacancies. For example, the Nye County School District has one of the highest vacancy rates in Nevada while only spending 11% of their rescue plan dollars on staff. The Clark County School District lists over 1,700 vacant positions this morning, yet they are spending less than 30% of their ARP dollars on staff. While most individual school districts have prioritized staff-related expenditures, only 37% of ARP dollars across all of Nevada's districts have gone to staff. NSCA has fielded many questions about how to fund Time for 20, but resources are available, including federal dollars and now a record state budget surplus. There are also strong recommendations for additional state revenue from your Commission on School Funding.
Mr. Daly, if you could wrap it up,
The
please.
crisis in Nevada schools is dire, and we need bold action now. Time for 20. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, next.
Good morning, Chair Dondero Luke and esteemed Finance Committee. My name is Annette Dawson-Owens, and I serve as the School Readiness Policy Director for the Children's Advocacy Alliance. I am here today to testify in support of several items on the agenda that can improve outcomes for Nevada children and families. Our work is guided by 4 pillars: health, safety, economic well-being, and school readiness, and has contributed to an improvement in conditions through advocacy, policy, and resources. In keeping with this commitment at CAA, we are concerned about all children and especially our most underserved. Therefore, we strongly ask you to support from List H, schools with a high percentage of low-income students, education for homeless children, English language learner grants. In addition, local library supports trauma-informed services in schools. Additionally, we support academic enrichment programs, academic enrichment after school hours. Out-of-school time is often an underutilized resource and investment in Nevada that can make a big difference for our students. Also from List G, we support school nutrition programs, access to care for children with rare diseases, and low-income affordable housing projects. On item H71, CAA is concerned about the use of TANF dollars to fund a virtual pre-K option at a time of economic uncertainty. According to a recent analysis prepared in 2021, Nevada has seen the sharpest drop in real TANF funding per child among the states since 1996, falling by 63.5% due to inflation. Nevada families continue to struggle with affording basic needs like food, shelter, clothing, and hygiene items. Have families receiving TANF support been asked if this is a program they would be interested in for their children? Do these families have the time to dedicate to this virtual learning option with their children? Many parents are working several jobs, and even 15 to 20 minutes is a luxury they may not have to supervise virtual education. TANF funds can be used for child care, transportation, food, and meeting the basic needs of children. CAA suggests there would be a better use of TANF dollars. If $2 million is available for pre-kindergarten, then we recommend allocating that money to existing in-person pre-kindergarten rather than looking for new programs through an RFA process. Virtual learning may be an option for some families and should be for those willing and able to dedicate the time to sit with their children in those such programs. However, using funds from the temporary assistance for needy families does not seem to be a best use of funds. We are grateful for this committee for your work and your ongoing support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schiller?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Kevin Schiller, Clark County Manager. I am here before you on item G, 15 and 16. In the interest of time, just want to put on the record, this is a project that is aimed at twofold. One, our housing crisis. Clark County has put forward about $160 million in a community housing fund. And utilizing both our federal funding and those funds towards these projects. This is one of those. This will be in Commissioner McCurdy's district. Just wanted to highlight a couple pieces tied to that. It's very focused on low-income workforce housing in terms of affordable median income, but it also is partnered with a business incubator process where we can do workforce training, where we really try to tackle diverse populations that are most vulnerable. So I wanted to put this on the record. Dagny Stapleton, our Director of Housing, is also here, so she can answer questions later if you need that, but wanted to make sure I put it on the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Additional public comment here in Las Vegas? Seeing none, we'll move to Carson City. Please go ahead when you're ready.
For Upstart program. I'm also a 42-year resident of our great state. I'd like to speak in support of the work program request included in agenda item H number 71 to provide funding for a virtual pre-K early learning program for Nevada's eligible TANF children. Some of the things that make our home state a wonderful and exciting place to live can also unfortunately result in barriers to site-based early education. Our rural expanses can also mean geographic distance and lack of transportation that can prevent 4-year-olds from attending school. They simply aren't able to bear long periods of travel on buses the way their older siblings can. Second, our urban tourist destinations mean there are large numbers of people working around the clock. Many of those people have young children, and sometimes work and school schedules simply don't align. Third, we have families who by choice want to keep their young children at home until they must send them to school, and we know as a state that we give them that right. All of these children will come to school, though, and our goal must be to have them ready to learn from their excellent teachers. I believe the key to this outcome is preparing children at home. Parents want their children to succeed. Over 15 years, I've seen the power of parents and their willingness to support their children's learning if they are given the tools they need. A home-based early learning program that provides curriculum based in the science of reading and aligned to state early learning standards, combined with a family coach who speaks the parent's language, can do this effectively and cost efficiently. The power of parent participation propels the program, and parents are given the tools, including a computer and internet, if they need it to succeed. The Upstart program requires just 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, which is well within the American Academy of Pediatricians screen time standard of 1 hour for 4-year-olds. Upstart has been piloted in Nevada with more than 1,200 families and with 85% of participating 4-year-olds showing strong kindergarten readiness outcomes. In short, the home-based learning program is a successful way to overcome some of the barriers that we know exist and prevent our youngest learners from attending site-based preschools, and it can be used to get them ready for learning in school and life. On behalf of Waterford Upstart, I respectfully request that the committee approve this work program request, and we stand ready to apply to serve as a provider of this service through a competitive bid process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And would you please state and spell your name again? I don't know if it was there in Carson City, but we did not hear it here in Las Vegas.
Dr. Claudia Miner, Miner.
Thank you, Dr. Miner, for joining us. Okay, next at the table. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Correctional Officer Shauna Beisner. That's SEANNA. BEISNER. I've seen a lot in my life, and my perception of what has been happening in the last 4 years with the NDOC has been one Band-Aid after another in a hopeless race to make us look better politically. There has been approximately $450,000 spent to renovate and meet ADA compliance standards at Warm Springs Correctional Center just to close the institution. This latest closure appears to be yet another Band-Aid for a larger problem. We have not been able to find staff, and we have not been able to retain staff for years due to non-competitive pay and reduced benefits. Instead of offering any kind of incentive for COs, be it a pay raise or bonuses, we're shutting down an institution. Our last substantial pay raise was back in 2004, which is well before my time, when they received a 15% raise. Every cost of living raise since then has been met with higher insurance premiums and PERS contributions, which means almost no raise at all. 6 months ago, Warm Springs put in a budget request for $125,000 to fix failing boilers. This request was ignored until it became an emergency situation. Now we're paying $1,000 a day to keep diesel fuel in the $35,000 a month rented heaters in the activities building. The activities building chiller has been broken for 3 years now. When it was first submitted, we were given a quote for $84,000 to replace it. Instead, the DOC has spent a total of $73,000 renting a chiller every summer. If we explore just 10 years ago in NDOC history, Nevada State Prison was closed with the same cost-saving promises that we are being given right now. 2 years later, when legislature reconvened, the cost savings were nowhere near the millions of dollars projected. There is no difference in the current promises, just an easy and obvious Band-Aid that will no doubt end the same way. In summary, the Department of Corrections will temporarily look good if we pull staff from one institution and combine them with another. But as long as they focus on surface issues, mismanage funds, and ignore root problems, the DOC will not be able to land on its feet and be the exceptional department it could be. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much for attending our meeting today.
Of course.
Go ahead, Dr. Irvin.
Thank you. Good morning. Kent Irvin, ERVIN, Nevada Faculty Alliance, representing the professional employees of Nevada's public colleges and universities. Today on Agenda G18, you can approve repayment of the furlough pay cuts from spring 2021 using federal ARPA funds. This is an important first step in restoring the state workforce, which is now at crisis vacancy rates of up to 30% across state agencies. The best time to have repaid furloughs was in May 2021 after ARPA was enacted and the $2.7 billion in funding for the state of Nevada was announced with interim rules. Restoring compensation and benefits for state employees cut because of the pandemic is not only allowed by the rules, but is an intended purpose. Another good time would have been when the final rules were published in April 2022. But now is better than waiting for the next biennium and will provide relief for state employees who have loyally served on the front lines throughout the pandemic and who remain in state employment. Since July 2019, inflation has been 16.6%. During that time, most state employees, including NSHE professionals, have received only 1% cost of living increase. Classified employees in collective bargaining units received 3%. State and NSHE salaries were already below competitive levels. If we want the state government to provide essential services to the citizens of Nevada, we must be able to hire and retain public employees. If we want to be able to hire new state employees and stop the losses, the next budget must contain a truly significant pay increase of 15 to 20%, along with restoration of health care benefits. With the high revenues forecast by the December Economic Forum, that is very much possible. We owe it to our public servants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional comment there in Carson City? Seeing none, we will go to the phone lines. BPS, when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. To participate in public comment, please press *9 now on your phone or raise hand in your Zoom window.
Good morning. My name is Jamel Nance. That is JAMELLENANCE. I'm the Director of Prenatal to 3 Initiatives with the Children's Advocacy Alliance. And this morning, I would like to express my support in favor of items G16 and H135 through 136. Said items propose the American Rescue Plan Act funding transfers to support affordable housing in a mixed-use project in the Westside Las Vegas, as well as the support of rental and homeowners assistance for families demonstrating financial need. I would like to ask the committee to consider this proposal from the lens of our youngest children. Families with young children face many challenges that threaten their ability to meet their children's most basic needs and provide the stable physical environments required for optimal development. Challenges such as financial instability, crowded housing, and food insecurity can jeopardize babies' development and have both immediate and long-term effects. Safeguarding access to safe, stable, affordable housing is a critical ingredient to healthy child development. It is difficult to consider other priorities like education when families are faced with making difficult decisions like paying their rent or feeding their children, but this is the reality for many of our Nevadians. Providing the opportunity for stable homes means building stable, strong families, and building strong families grows strong, healthy children. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Caller with the last three digits of 892, you are unmuted. Please continue.
Hello, my name is Shelly Speck. That's Shelley. Last name is spelled Speck, and I live in Gardnerville, Nevada. I am providing testimony today on behalf of the Children's Advocacy Alliance and the Nevada Strong Start Coalition. How would you all feel if just for one day you didn't know where you were going to sleep at night? Imagine if your most precious belongings were traveling around in a suitcase with you or in your car. Would those pictures that you were toting around to remind you of those bygone days and long-lost relatives be important anymore? I often hear that our society is judged by how we treat the least among us. It is our time to step up and support our fellow Nevadans, not only individuals, but also families that have found themselves homeless due to the pandemic. In order to increase the prevention efforts of families slipping into homelessness due to massive rent increases and competition for properties, we must continue to provide emergency rental assistance from the American Rescue Plan. Since evictions have become commonplace statewide, low-income housing is needed now more than ever. As we navigate a system to produce more affordable housing options, let us not forget those children that languish on waiting lists for homes with their families. Their progress and potential hang in the balance. Although many children are experiencing homelessness, they are still entitled to equal access to a public education. If given the opportunity, they will have a better chance of becoming independent, tax-paying citizens. When we can first secure housing, then we can focus on student success and outcomes. Ask yourselves, what can I do to prevent another child from entering into the child welfare system? We don't want families being separated just because they are homeless. When you leave here today, please make a commitment to provide funding for housing assistance and low-income rural support for our children. Specifically items G15, G16, H15, as well as H135. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Good morning, Chair and board members. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment. My name is Janelle Woodward. That's Janell Woodward. I'm a state employee and a proud member of AFSCME Local 4041. I am proud of the work that I do for the state of Nevada on behalf of the residents of Nevada in keeping them safe. AFSCME Local 4041 fought hard for ARPA funds to come to the state to correct budget shortfalls. As part of the process of balancing the budget shortfalls during COVID, state employees were forced to take furlough days, even though by the time we took those furlough days, it was no longer necessary. State employees are among the lowest paid employees in Nevada. We truly are the public servants of the state in every aspect of the work. I am asking the ISC to approve the governor's request to reimburse those furlough days to employees. This will go a very long way in raising employee morale and helping in times where inflation is still apparently around 16% or more. The state has experienced severe staffing shortages secondary to the very low pay and expensive healthcare costs. Reimbursing furlough days immediately will help put some funds back into the pockets of state employees in a very needed time. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Next caller, please.
Good morning. My name is Anna Marie Binder. There's so much on this agenda, so I want to keep it to a couple things I have not seen a lot of public comment on. The first one is the agenda item for the $10 million to Roseman University. I have a student who wants to be a doctor. She joined the Nevada National Guard, but when they put in for that accelerated program for nurses, she would otherwise qualify for that, but the National Guard will not reimburse facilities like Toro or Roseman because they're not considered in-state colleges. So now that precludes an amazing college student that could be a nurse in a very short period of time. So I don't, know what we can do about that. But if we're giving them $10 million to, help us get doctors, you would think that it would be from an institution that would support our National Guard. In addition, we're very grateful for the investment for the school year 23-24 free breakfast and lunch program. However, I believe this is going to be the fourth year that we are not collecting data when families apply for that. So I would also request a consideration that the application be filled out, even though it is not a determination of eligibility. We really need that data. I'm also a parental member of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. So another concern that I have, and we've been talking about this in the early education committees, is we're concerned that child care providers will potentially raise their rates as the state implements this additional $50 million in subsidiaries that are very much needed for our working families. I've read a lot from parents lately, and they're paying more than most pay for rent and mortgage just to work. And we need the rates to stay reasonable so that those that do not qualify for the subsidiaries are not being gouged. I am also the wife of an NDOC employee, and we are very grateful for the reimbursement of the furloughs during 2021. Over a decade, we have never had the opportunity to be reimbursed for furloughs, so we very much appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us today. Next caller, please.
If you recently just joined us and you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now on your phone or raise hand in your Zoom window. Again, if you recently just joined us and you would like to participate in public comment, please press *9 now on your phone or raise hand in your Zoom window. Chair, your public line is open and working, but you have no callers at this time.
Thank you very much. We will go on to the next agenda item, and the next item are items C, D, and E. Approval of the minutes on the June 21st, 2022, July 26th, 2022, and August 17, 2022 meetings. I intend to take all three agenda items jointly. Members, a copy of the draft minutes for all three meetings is included in your meeting packet. They have also been posted online. Do any members have suggested revisions or edits to the draft minutes? Seeing none, if there are no suggested revisions or edits, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 21st, July 26th, and August 17, 2022 meetings of the Interim Finance Committee.
I move to approve.
Thank you very much. I'll take a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand. And all those opposed? Any discussion? Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the next agenda item F, the statement of the American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund obligations, and remaining reserve balances within the COVID-19 relief program's budget account. The statement will be presented by fiscal staff. Mr. Leiser, please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Chair Dondera Loop, Vice Chair Monroe Moreno, and members of the Interim Finance Committee. For the record, my name is Brody Leiser, serve as a Chief Principal Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. I will walk through Agenda Item F, the Statement of American Rescue Plan Act, Coronavirus State Fiscal Recovery Fund obligations, and remaining reserve balances. The statement can be found in Volume 1 of the meeting packet, beginning with the summary sheet on page 285. Before I walk through each section, I would like to update the committee on revisions which have been made and are presented on the statement. First, the total amount associated with the lost revenue reserve balance has been updated from approximately $1.1 billion to approximately $1.3 billion. As footnoted, the increase is the result of basing the calculation on the state fiscal year as allowed as an option under the federal final rule for states electing to calculate revenue loss, rather than a calendar year basis, which was a requirement under the interim rule. As a result of the increase to the amount associated with revenue loss, there was an equal reduction to the main reserve, which revised the amount from $1.1 billion to approximately $883.3 million. This reduction prompted additional adjustments on the statement to align the reserve funding source for certain programs to ensure that the main reserve balance was not negative. These adjustments are also noted throughout the statement where applicable. Finally, as discussed during the October 20th IFC meeting, we have updated figures to reflect actual program expenditures for approved obligations, which were finalized with the close of fiscal year 22. For program obligations that were approved for fiscal year 22 only, actual expenditures were less than total authorizations and netted a realized savings of approximately $26 million. The amounts which have been revised to reflect the actual expenditures are footnoted on each of the applicable sections of the statement, and as I will present shortly, we have included a new section which has a table at the end of the statement to show where the $26 million in savings was realized. If all items submitted for consideration today are approved, which total approximately $85.3 million, the remaining unobligated balance of coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds would be approximately $37.6 million, all of which is shown under the lost revenue reserve as displayed on the summary statement. Pages 287 through 295 of the meeting packet detail the obligations approved to date. There are 132 work programs facilitating 15 requests submitted for consideration by the committee today, which began on page 296 of the packet. The majority, or 115 of the work programs submitted for consideration, fall under Agenda Item G18, as Mr. Thorley previously indicated, which is the request to reimburse eligible employees for reduced compensation experienced as a result of furloughs required to be taken during the second half of fiscal year 21 as a result of budgetary reductions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to take an opportunity to provide clarification to Senator Goycochea's question regarding the dollar amounts associated with the work programs before the committee today. And if the committee approves item G18, those work programs that then would be processed by the governor's finance office and the controller's office. Under item G18, there is one work program that we often refer to as the Pitcher Work Program. That is a work program for the COVID-19 relief program's budget. That work program would allocate the total $35.5 million for the furlough paybacks. And the 210 work programs that are not on the agenda as a result of the dollar threshold or the associated agency being exempt from the State Budget Act. In total, those 210 work programs amount to approximately $3.4 million. that would be processed. But again, the total amount for furloughs for all work programs amounts to $35.5 million. So I hope that clarifies Senator Goykachia's question. And if not, if there are questions when I'm done with my presentation, I'd be happy to try and address those to provide further clarification. On pages 297 through 302 of the meeting packet, the breakdown statement for select obligations of coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds is presented. There are two items on page 302 under the section for allocations of the $100 million in authority for state agencies that were approved by the governor's office and did not require approval of the IFC as indicated on the statement. These two items are on the list with dates of October 18th and November 14th, 2022. As previously mentioned, we have included a new table section in the statement, which can be viewed on page 303 of Volume 1 of the meeting packet. This table provides details showing final program expenditures compared to the original approved authority for programs that were approved for fiscal year 2022 only, as well as any resulting savings where applicable. The savings of approximately $26 million is available to be repurposed for other uses and purposes in accordance with the Federal American Rescue Plan Act and final rule. This savings is accounted for in the remaining $37.6 million balance of unobligated coronavirus state fiscal recovery funds that I referred to earlier and is identified on the summary and detailed sections of the statement. Chair Dondero-Loop, that concludes my remarks specific to the statement, and would be happy to address any questions that members may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leiser, for your presentation. Committee members, any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Senator Titus?
Senator Titus.
Thank
There you are. Thank you.
So just for clarification, there was a date that we had to allocate these funds and a date that we have to spend these funds, correct?
For the record, Brody Leiser, through you, Chair, to Senator Titus. Yes, that is correct. The funds need to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and the obligated funds need to be expended by December 31st, 2026.
So just again, if I might, Madam Chair, continue on that, along that line. So we have an additional $26 million that we've previously obligated, but then we are not going to spend, so we can re-obligate them, providing that they are obligated by December 2024?
For the record, Brody Leiser, through you, Chair, to Senator Titus, that is correct.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Additional questions? If for some reason I don't see you up there on the screen, holler out. Assemblywoman Peters, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So I've been getting some emails regarding some of these exempt agencies and concerns that the furloughs won't be approved or the furlough repayments won't be approved for those programs or agencies. Can you just confirm for us whether there are any agencies that are missing from the list that have been proposed for the furlough paybacks?
For the record, Brody Leiser, through you, Chair, to Assemblywoman Peters, I believe that all agencies that had furloughs, had employees who've taken furloughs have submitted, the Governor's Finance Office has submitted work programs for all of those agencies. I believe that we have done a comparison, a general comparison to some of the amounts that were accounted for as savings from the special session where the furloughs were implemented and done a cross-check. I believe that the governor's finance office has also worked with the Division of Human Resource Management to ensure that all active employees who have taken furloughs are accounted for in the 324 total work programs that have been submitted. And so I believe the answer to your question is yes, and that there has been work and coordination by the governor's finance office working with the Division of Human Resource Management of the Department of Administration, working directly with the Legislative Council Bureau, working directly with the Nevada System of Higher Education, and also working with the judicial branch to ensure that all eligible employees will receive a payback for the furlough if the committee approves this item today. And if there's anything that I missed, I believe that the budget director will pop to the table, but she's not coming up to the table. So I hope that answers your question, Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leiser. Yes, we have received emails on that topic. If the GFO is there in the room and would like to follow up and address any of this, we'd be happy to hear from you right now, Ms. Stevenson. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Amy Stevenson, Director for the Governor's Finance Office. As Mr. Leiser had indicated, we have worked with the Division of Human Resource Management, Judicial Branch, Legislative Council Bureau, I think everybody and their mother, to make sure that everybody got this repayment. So I didn't want to, if there's any other questions I can answer, I can do that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Senator Titus here, sorry.
Senator Titus?
I wasn't sure if we're going to address this further. We're going to pull it perhaps later on, so maybe we can ask some more questions, or should I be asking my questions now? I just didn't want to hold the process up.
No. Hold. We'll be discussing this later in the agenda. I just thought since it came up, we would maybe put some of this to bed with the mother. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion on Mr. Leiser's presentation? Seeing none, the next piece on our that we will be taking action on would be for, I would like to state for the record that this action does not constitute this is a work in progress here. Thank you very much for your patience. Okay, we will be going to item G, where we have the approval of the work program, and I'll be handing this over to Mr. Thorley. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, again, Wayne Thorley, LCB Fiscal. I will go over List G, the ARPA work program list, List H, the non-ARPA work program list, as well as List P, the info items list. And I will note the items that have been identified to be pulled for discussion, after which time individual committee members will have the opportunity to pull additional items. I'll start with List G, which is the ARPA work program list. First, on page 2, G9 will be pulled for discussion. That's the Office of the Governor COVID-19 relief programs, an allocation to the Department of Agriculture. Next, on page 3 of List G, items 13 and 14 will be pulled for discussion and heard together. Then items 15 and 16 will also be pulled for discussion and heard jointly. Item number 17, I'm now on page 4 of List G, so item 17 will be pulled for discussion. And lastly, item G18, 18.1 through 18.15, or 115. So all 115 furlough work programs under item G18 will be pulled and heard jointly. And that is it for List G. I'll move on now to List H, which is the non-ARPA work program list. First, on page 2, H11 and H12 will be pulled for discussion and heard jointly. On page 7 of List H, there are 3 items on that page that have been withdrawn. The withdrawal request was received on December 13th, which is after the agenda had already been published. So H37, 39, and 40 have been withdrawn and will not be heard or considered by the IFC today. So that's on page 7. 37, 39, and 40 have all been withdrawn. The next item that has been pulled for, or that will be pulled for discussion is 53. Moving on to page 12 of List H, there are 2 revisions that need to be made to items on this page. First, number 64. The agenda shows that this item involves an allocation of block grant funds, and that the agency, the Division of Public and Behavioral Health in this case, is using the IFC meeting as the required public hearing. That is not correct. Item 64 does not relate to a block grant and therefore does not need that public hearing associated with the block grant. So 64 has not been identified to be pulled for discussion. Then on the same page, number 66 includes similar language, also from the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, that the item relates to a block grant and that the agency is using IFC as the required public meeting. This item has already had a public hearing at the August 25th meeting of the Behavioral Health Policy and Advisory Council. So it does not need an additional public meeting. So number 66 has not been identified to be pulled for discussion. So that's the clarification on 64 and 66. Neither one has been identified to be pulled for discussion to have a public hearing. Moving on to page 13, number 71 will be pulled for discussion. Then on to page 14, number 73. And number 74 also. On page 16 of List H, number 88 has been withdrawn. Again, the withdrawal request was received after the agenda was posted, so it's not reflected on the agenda. But number 88 has been withdrawn and will not be considered by the Interim Finance Committee today. Moving on to page 17, number 92 will be pulled for discussion. Number 94 will also be pulled for discussion. On to page 20. Number 112 will be pulled for discussion. And then jumping ahead to page 25. The last 2 items are 135. That will be pulled for discussion, and 137 will be pulled for discussion. That's it for List H. On List P, which is the information items list, The committee has not identified any items on list P at this time that will be pulled or will have additional discussion. So that's it, Madam Chair. Happy to go over that list again with anybody, or if you'd like, after you ask the committee members, I can go over the full list.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Thorley. Committee members, any items that you would like pulled? And if I don't see you, please feel free to speak out. Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to pull, I believe it's G11, and I wanted to pull H35.
Any additional items to be pulled?
So 35.
35 has been withdrawn.
Yes. It'll say at the bottom, it should say.
Any additional items? Carson City online?
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. I just want to go on record as my first meeting at IFC as a senator. I'm not asking for anything to be pulled.
I second
Senator
that.
Titus, with that, we much appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much. Mr. Thorley, would you please bring us up to speed and go over the full list? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wayne Thorley for the record, again, LCB Fiscal. So just for everyone's benefit, the items on list G that have been pulled and will have a hearing are 9, 11, 13 and 14 jointly, 15 and 16 jointly, 17, 18.1 through 18.115 jointly. And that's it for list G. On list H, 11 and 12 jointly, 53, 71, 73, 74, 92, 94, 112, 135, and 137. And on list P, no items.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Thorley. And with that, I would ask for a motion to approve all items that were not pulled.
Madam Chair, I move to approve all items that were not approved, as stated by Mr. Thorley.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any discussion from the members? Thank you very much. And with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. And with that, any discussion? The motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll take just a second to allow those who may not need to stay for the rest of the meeting to leave, and then we'll regroup. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. We are going to take some items under H, slightly out of order to help facilitate some meetings this afternoon. So Mr. Thorley, would you please go through that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the chair would like to hear items H11 and 12 from the Department of Education. Also, while the Department of Education is at the table, well, these aren't related, but they do have other items on the agenda, so the chair would like to hear J2 and M1 and M2.
And please go ahead when you're ready. Thank you.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Heidi Hartz, and I serve as the Deputy Superintendent for the Student Investment Division at the Nevada Department of Education. Work program number 11 is intended to allow the Department of Education to establish revenue and expenditure authority totaling $970,000 in fiscal year 2023 in federal funds to support trauma-informed services in schools, which is a new grant received by the Department of Education. This work program does include a request to establish one new state position, a program officer. And I would note that this is a multi-year federal grant. We're only requesting authority at this point in time for the first fiscal year. Agenda item number 12 also requests revenue and expenditure authority for $1.9 million in federal funds received from the Stop School Violence Grant, which will allow the department to further enhance the development and implementation of programs and services targeted at school violence and bullying prevention. Again, this is a multiple year grant, and the request for this authority covers activities that may be experienced in what is currently established in the first 3 years of implementation. We'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee has at this time.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Miller, please.
Thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. My question for the department is if you could please discuss, maybe more of a request, but if you could please discuss the current safety concerns that the department has observed and how these two grants that you just mentioned actually work to address those concerns, as well as the department's long-term goals when it comes to school safety.
Heidi Hartz, for the record, thank you. I'm going to ask that Christy McGill, our Director of the Office of Safe and Respectful Schools, answer your question. She's in Carson City today.
Good morning. Christy McGill for the record. The safety concerns that we've been hearing is both on the student and the staff side. The grant that was discussed around improving school safety will actually look at the Safe Voice. Sorry, just walked over here. We'll actually look at the Safe Voice program and improve some problems of practice. So one of the problems of practice that we have is making sure that there's good collaboration between law enforcement, our schools, and our mental health providers. So this particular grant will take a look at improving the platform and improving the collaboration on that platform. We are working with West Ed and also industry leaders in this area to really make it a place where schools and law enforcement can readily communicate. For the other piece, trauma, is a response from our teachers saying that many of our students have come out of the pandemic experiencing trauma and long-term trauma, and to really make sure that we have services. So this particular grant also dovetails our ARPA funding that DHHS, what we got from in the fall, which really focused on Clark and Washoe. This particular grant focuses on the rurals, so that we have equity both in Clark and Washoe and also our rurals.
Additional follow-up, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to see if we could clarify in here, we see that it's based on preventing, obviously, anything physical, but also the bullying. And I was just wondering if, when we've seen an increase of racism and racial motivated acts happening in the schools as well, if this would also be addressed under these programs.
Christy McGill for the record. The Safe Voice program does track and initiate the bullying process. In fact, it's one of our top 3 tips that come through. And yes, this grant will improve the P3 platform to improve not only to make sure that's right now it's already happening, that the schools are getting the bullying complaints, but that there are services, supports, and interventions, if need be, to follow that. And so really what we're trying to do is get to the point where the bullying is an early intervention. And so either it's the victim or the aggressor who may need additional services and supports. This particular grant will explore how we are able to do that through a platform. And we are also piloting an electronic health record to really look at if those services and supports to students are making positive student outcomes. So we're not guessing. So those are the improvements that we are hoping to make.
I'm sorry, I had asked specifically about racism. So if you can just tell me in a yes or no if that's included.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Additional questions on this item?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. So in the description, and thank you for the explanation, and I think it's an important component and safe and respectful, and I know you're addressing rural issues, but I always wonder about when you say terms like expand the treatment options for children, youth, and their families, how is that going to be? I'd like a little more detail that you can send to all, I'm sure all committee members will want to know that, because I always worry about the providers. This is well-intended, we're going to be doing this, X, Y, and Z, but how are you going to implement it when we don't have enough of any professionals out there? So I'm curious about that description and explanation of how truly you're going to expand the treatment options, whether it'll be online, whether it'll be referrals, because that's what I'm hearing the biggest lack is that who do you refer them to? Once you've identified bullying, once you've identified whatever the problem is, how do you actually intervene when we don't have enough teachers in the classroom, psychologists, social workers, et cetera? So I'd like a breakdown of that at some point, and thank you. So it's more of a request, and I'm sure you don't have that available perhaps right now, but I'd love to see more. Thank you.
Christy McGill for the record, and we can definitely send our plans, but that is exactly what these 2 grants are hoping to do. We know that there is an issue with the workforce, and part of what we want to do for short term, why we build the workforce, is how do we work better together? So how does the school work better with providers in the community to really leverage those 2 resources, and why we're investing in the communication procedures between those 2, between community and schools. Because what we've really found during the pandemic is that the schools, nor the community providers, nor law enforcement for that matter, can do any of this alone. So how do we work better together to actually do this?
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad that topic was brought up. I would also like to see some of how you're looking at integrating those behavioral health care providers in this program. But my second question has to do with an update on your Medicaid billing process in our schools for those eligible healthcare services that are provided in schools. If you don't have that in front of you today, just a follow-up would be great. I'd just like to know where we're at with that.
Christy McGill for the record. Yes, we can provide an update for you exactly what districts are billing Medicaid for what services and give you that update. We do have some challenges that we are working through with the Nevada Medicaid, things like proper documentation in the school districts for nurses and our school-based mental health professionals is one of the challenges that we are working on right now. But we can definitely give you a detailed report on who is billing, for what, and the kinds of services that are coming out both on the school side and the community side.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a real quick question. I was trying to find it, but in 2019, we passed a bill that would require each school district to come up with a program to reduce suicide ideation. And I'm looking here at number 11. And I'm wondering, at the time that we passed the bill, the question was, how would we fund it? So I'm wondering if there's any consideration to make sure that we're complying with that bill.
Christy McGill for the record.
And I'll find the number and give it to you.
Yeah, no, I know what you're referring to. Thank you. That's exactly what we try to do, is really look at the federal discretionary funds to make sure that the priorities that the Nevada Legislature and the Nevada Department of Education and the district set are fulfilled. So that is a piece of it. And again, for that, the DOJ grant, we're going to put the suicide prevention training, the Columbia screening, right into the platform itself. So it is an on-demand and ready as an option, as well as live options as well. And the other piece that we're really excited about in this grant, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about it, is that it will also be a training for our law enforcement personnel as well. In Nevada, law enforcement respond to many of the crises here that students have off school hours. And so really making sure that law enforcement have some of that training at their fingertips, especially around the Columbia suicide screening.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and take a motion on items H11 and 12.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you very much. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Thank you very much. And with that, all those that approve say aye.
Aye.
All those that don't say nay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much to the Department of Education and Ms. McGill for all you're doing for our children. Thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to item J1. No, J2, sorry.
Thank you, Heidi Hartz for the record. Item J2 requests a transfer of $758,590 from the IFC contingency account into the account for state special education services. This transfer allows us to maintain expenditure authority in fiscal year 2023 of $2 million, which is a demonstration of the state's financial commitment to our maintenance of efforts towards the federal funds that also serve our students who have special educational needs. As a reminder, the funds that are dedicated for this purpose, the contingency funds, are for those school districts that have students who have extraordinarily expensive services that they need to receive, or who those costs are driven by their need to obtain services outside of their district because they're not currently available within their district. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about this request for a transfer.
Any questions on this particular item? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you very much. I'll take a second.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any discussion? Hearing none, motion approved. And we'll move on to items M1 and 2.
Heidi Hartz for the record. Agenda item M1 requests approval to receive and expend a donation of $3 million from Tesla, which will be used to continue to support initiatives related to robotics, STEM, and sustainable education K-12 programs. Tesla has been making donations to this budget account for this purpose for approximately 4.5 years. And so this is just the continuation of the receipt of those funds so that we can continue to fund programs and services that were previously selected and awarded fundings through their grant application process.
Thank you very much. Questions, Senator Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in regards to the robotic programs that I know I've seen specifically like in my district, well, it's not in my district, but Legacy High School and some of the other schools, they aren't exactly what I would describe as fully developed. And so is this money going to target and enhance those programs so students who actually enroll in robotics as an elective feel that they're actually gaining a skill set that they can actually use and translate into the space?
Heidi Hartz for the record. When these funds were made available to the state, specifically the Department of Education from Tesla, Tesla went through a grant application process and they identified specific organizations to receive funds for specific programs. And so as we receive funding from Tesla, we continue to make payments to the subrecipients that have been identified. And so the intent is to establish and to strengthen programs in alignment with the grant applications that were received from the various applicants. I think if specific subrecipient questions, I would need to work with Tesla to seek clarification on those projects and proposals.
Quick follow-up. So let me make myself a little bit more clear. So let me talk about CCSD. So CCSD already has robotics as an elective in certain schools. And so the question is, if you're going to clarify something, it's making sure that this $3 million, if it is dispersed to CCSD for robotics, existing robotics classes, that there at least be a conversation about how they're going to enhance the program before they receive the money. I'm saying this because I've seen it, right? I've seen the robotics classes, and I guess my expectations of what I expected a student to receive was not being demonstrated in the classroom, right? I saw a lot of sitting, I saw a lot of boredom, I saw a lot of like, well, I don't really understand what I'm supposed to receive. You know what I'm saying? Because the idea is that you're going to take robotics as an elective, so it's a hands-on class that is going to promote STEM and some other kinesthetic learning, right? I didn't see that. And so I'm hoping that in this allocation that we're going to get, that there is a conversation with the entities about ramping up before they receive, rather than giving money and then it still is the status quo and the students are unsatisfied and feeling like their electives pretty much suck.
Heidi Hartz for the record. I'll be happy to convey your concern both to Tesla and to the Clark County School District.
Thank you very much. Additional questions from the committee
Madam Chair?
on this item? Yes, please, Senator Titus.
Thank you. According to the information that was submitted, Tesla has promised $37.5 million to be awarded to the K through 12 education, and they award the grants, they decide where they want their money to go. I'm curious as to if it was a 5-year program, they're donating it. This is a 4th year. How much total money has our state received from Tesla at this point?
Heidi Hartz, for the record. We have received, I believe, just under $30 million
And so if this
from
is
Tesla at this point in time.
counting what we would agree to today,
Just 1 second, please. So with this donation and the authority we are seeking today, this will allow us to have completed distribution of approximately $33 million since fiscal year 2019.
Thank you for that. And I agree with where Senator Neal's line of questioning regarding outcome data and has this money really produced any real enhancement for the students, which was what the intent was. And so I'd love to see how many people have been enrolled in these programs throughout the state. You know, it was really hands-on. Did we get more folks going into the science programs and the intent of this? So it's great to have the money, but is it just going to a program that the students have really not benefit from it? So some outcome data would be great to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess I'd like to go back to, was it 2014 when we voted for Tesla to come in? There were some items that they were supposed to do with respect to education and making reference to Senator Neal's question and comment. Is it possible just to go back to look at what they said they would actually do? Because it doesn't appear, and I've been to Legacy to see the program there, and it's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's not that the school is not trying to do. I think they're doing what they can with what they have, but I think it'd be a good idea just to go back and see what they testified to in 2014 and make sure that it is comparable to what is actually happening. Does that make sense to you?
Heidi Hartz, for the record, I believe we've actually done that analysis previously in collaboration with LCB staff, but we'll be happy to revisit that with them and ensure that you get that information.
Yeah, and I asked that follow-up, Madam Chair. Yeah, I asked that question because it can be one thing on paper, and so that's following the letter. But I think what I'm getting at is, are we following it, indeed, in terms of the legislative intent?
Heidi Hartz, for the record. We look forward to the follow-up letter we'll get from LCB staff after today's meeting asking that we do more research on these projects for you. Tesla does collect information on a regular basis and they prepare reports. So we will also work with them to see if they have a report that's readily available that can be shared with all of you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions from committee members? Okay, not seeing any. I will take a motion. Do you want to do M1 and M2? Sorry, we'll go to M2 and then we'll do the motions together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heidi Hartz. For the record, agenda item M2 requests approval for the Department of Education to accept a donation of $110,000 from Governor Sisolak, which will allow us to continue to support supplies for Title I schools. As a point of reference, when the governor was elected and came into office, he made a commitment to donating his salary for 4 years to the benefit of Title I schools. At that time, 416 schools were identified. Each school would receive a total of $1,000 throughout his 4-year term. At this point, we have issued payment to just to approximately 350 schools, and we will continue to issue payments as we receive his donation. Schools have a lot of flexibility in how they invest their $1,000 donation. It can be school supplies up to and including things from classroom supplies to musical instruments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, I will now take the motion for M1 and M2 together.
Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. With those motions, any discussion? Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any discussion? Motion passes. Thank you very much, and thank you to the Department of Ed. All right, now we will revert back to G, and we will start with G9. Please go ahead when you're ready.
All right. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Ott, and I serve as the Director for the Nevada Department of Agriculture. I'm appearing in front of you today for, frankly, a reason that I didn't think was possible this summer, and that's to request the committee's approval for a second year of funding for our Universal School Meal Program. That's free breakfast and free lunch for all students in the state of Nevada at participating schools. Madam Chairwoman, I have 3 slides to provide the update of how the school meals are going and the methodology behind the request. I will be brief, but based on the questions I received this summer from the committee, I thought it would be prudent to provide this information. The first slide that you have up here on your screen is the meal counts and the ARPA funding that has been expended through the month of October. If you see the asterisk there, that just denotes that we are still receiving meal claims from October. So those October numbers are not quite whole yet. Schools have 60 days to submit their meal counts to us, and so we won't receive the full number until the end of this month, the end of December. So you can see the first 2 columns here are the school breakfast, SBP, school breakfast program. Those are the meals served under the free, reduced, and paid categories, and the total there at the bottom, and the corresponding ARPA dollars that have been used for those categories. The second 2 columns are the National School Lunch Program. So the second 2 is just lunches. And the free meals served, reduced, and paid meals served total at the bottom, and the ARPA dollars that have been expended for that program as well. There are 3 reasons that I am able to be in front of you today to request this second year. The first is the incredible work that Nevada schools have performed to get students enrolled in the free and reduced lunch meal program. There was a huge effort that was made by the Department of Education and our schools to utilize as many USDA dollars as possible, and they really came through. I can tell you when I went to my own son's back to school night, I was handed a free and reduced lunch form and told I wasn't allowed to leave until I filled it out. And so they have done such an incredible job of enrolling children in this program to utilize and bring in as many USDA dollars into the state as possible. The second is the work of my own team. Since this summer, they've enrolled 33 new schools in the CEP program. That's the Community Eligibility Program. That's USDA's version of Universal Meals. The school has to have a 40% FRL eligibility to be enrolled in that program. We have 33 new schools, and we've identified at least 12 more, and we're continuing to work on that to reduce the number of ARPA funds that we are utilizing and increase the number of USDA funds that we're utilizing. And the third is that there is clearly a need in the state. For this school year, almost 73% of school children that attend a public school qualify for free and reduced lunch. That is an increase of the 64.5% that we saw in fiscal year 19 and 20. So there has been an increase in need since the pandemic and certainly after. This is my last slide, and here's the breakdown of the numbers. This summer, the committee approved $75.9 million of ARPA funds to be used for the Universal Meal Program. Our meal claims in August of 2022 totaled over $3.6 million. These are ARPA funds only. Meal claims in September was 5.1, and meal claims to date in October was 4.3. Based on those numbers, the estimated ARPA funds that are needed for the remaining of this school year are $38.085 million. And a total that will be expended is $51 million. We had originally asked for 75. We did that because we really didn't know, based on what was happening during the pandemic and the waivers that we saw, where we were going to sit this year. We overshot, but the estimated amount remaining is the 24 million point six. So for next school year, we have a projected need of $52 million, which means we need an additional ARPA request, which is in front of you today, for next school year at $28.1 million. Because of the collective effort of the Department of Education, the schools, my team, and the increased need, the USDA is funding more than we thought. And we are in a situation where an additional $28 million can fund a second school year. I understand we're getting close to the final ARPA limit, and the sooner that the schools understand or know that this funding is coming, the better they can plan, they can retain their staff that is needed to administer school lunches and school breakfasts. And I wanted to provide the committee this opportunity, which, again, this summer I didn't think was possible. So, Chairwoman, thank you so much for your time, and I'm here for any questions if you need.
Thank you very much for your information and the slides. Any questions on this item? Yes, Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Ott, I want to say thank you. One of my concerns when we approved this program is that we weren't going to fully utilize the USDA funds, and you guys have done an excellent job. And so I just want to commend you on your efforts and say thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just really quick, I wanted to ask is if there's any way, because you know we're heading into Christmas break, and a lot of the students, this is the meal that they're relying on. And so, you know, during COVID, we flexed a lot of what we did, right? We tried to take care of students in the summer and out of school. And so I don't know if there's a conversation or if there is an interest in doing that. And the reason why I'm asking this is because something that I've noticed in my district when I go, you know, I guess I would say I hang around in the areas, and I'm noticing that families are literally at the point where there's a high rate of people stealing like basic toiletries, meaning deodorant, shampoo, body wash, right? And I'm noticing this because you notice what's they're putting behind the counter to keep from folks from walking out with it. And so when you see that kind of behavior, that if you can't afford deodorant, then more than likely you're not affording food, right? And so is there a conversation about over these 2 weeks, this break, making sure that some of those children or the families can access food maybe somewhere, even though it's not the school site, because we need to let, everybody have their vacation?
Thank you so much for the question, Jennifer. Out for the record, through you, Chair, to Senator Neal. Yes, there's programs existing that offer school children and adults and their families meals during the school breaks, not just summer, but also Christmas break and spring break as well. It's not the National School Lunch and Breakfast Program. It's a different program through USDA. So there are those sites where children can and their families can receive meals. The challenge has been with those programs is how can we better find ways to meet the clients halfway, meet those that are food insecure, or gosh, not even halfway, all of the way. There's a lot of conversations about, can we take food trucks into apartment complexes? Is there a way we can continue the waivers with USDA to do a non-congregate meal setting? So there's a lot of conversations, and frankly, since the pandemic, there has been a lot of success in those programs, but there is more needed, and that is absolutely a conversation that we're working on with our partners.
So if there's an opportunity to, thank you, Madam Chair, for that quick follow-up. If there's an opportunity to partner, right, there's some agencies that are going into some of those places, and while they're giving toys, which I know people love toys, but I love food, and toiletries, put that out there. How about not give a toy, but give some deodorant? Anyway, but if you would like to talk after to try to partner with some of the groups that are already going to be doing some Christmas movements, that might be a good opportunity to, partner with some of the groups that are going into the low-income apartment complexes already. Okay.
Thank you, Senator Neal. I would love that.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. So thank you for Director Ott for the update and all you've been doing. On our notes, it says that there's 460,422 students enrolled. Do you have an estimate about how many are eligible that aren't enrolled?
Jennifer Ott for the record, through you, Madam Chair. We don't. It's, when you sign up for the free and reduced lunch program, we don't know who is not signing up. We don't have a way to track them. So we don't know who is eligible that hasn't enrolled.
Do you have a business?
Thank you very much.
Do you have a business
go ahead.
plan? Sorry. Do you have a business plan on how this food is used, and if you have an agreement with, say, food banks or other agencies? I'm hearing a lot of the food is just wasted. That the kids don't like it, they throw it away, or they don't eat it. So even though they're enrolled, how many kids are actually using this food? And then what do you do at the end of the day when they haven't been there for breakfast or they haven't been there for lunch? Do you then take it to a food bank, or are we using it in some other capacity, or does it just get thrown out?
Thank you, Jennifer Ott for the record. Thank you, Senator Titus, through you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that question so much. Really, it tees up for sort of what the next role of the Department of Agriculture is going to begin working on. I've never made a secret that I'm looking at full bellies first. That is our absolute main priority. Our second priority is quality and waste. And so we're working in these next couple of years with school districts on the quality of food. A lot of that has to do with supply chain issues. Sort of you get what you get at this point, and we're lucky for it, and we're trying to change that with some of the programs that we're bringing online. As far as food waste, we have administrative reviews as part of the National School Lunch Program where my team goes into schools, see how things are going. And part of our reviews will begin to look at that waste factor, how many students are going through the line and throwing away the carrots. Well, if they're throwing away the carrots, maybe we shouldn't be serving carrots. Maybe we should be serving something else. Or maybe we should be looking at ways of educating how delicious carrots are, or serving them Nevada carrots, which are the most delicious. So, yes, we're going to begin looking at that as well, but the priority has been to offer every child a meal first.
Great. Thank you for the update, and thank you for the question, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any additional questions on Senator Spearman?
It's more of a comment. Senate Bill 297 last session provided for the development of community gardens and urban farms, and I know some schools are using that as a way to teach what carrots do, and they are delicious. So that might be an added tool, just to look at 297 and see how that might help you expand the learning model in the schools and possibly even in the neighborhoods. So just a thought.
Thank you very much. And yes, that's a very successful program in the schools. So thank you for that suggestion. Any other questions or comments? I would just comment, I too, thank you so much for what you're doing. We have a lot of children who need this program, and as a teacher for many, many years, I watched it happen. So thank you, thank you. So, and thank you for the Nevada carrots. All right, with that, no more discussion or questions. I will take a motion on G9.
Move to approve.
Thank you very much.
A second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any discussion? Okay, thank you very much. Approved. And thank you very much, Ms. Ott, for being here today with us. Okay, next on the agenda is G11, which was pulled by Senator Neal. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I am Dr. Antonina Capurro, Deputy Administrator with the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. Agenda item G11 requests $250,000 of American Rescue Plan Act dollars to hire a contractor to identify and analyze areas of system improvements to reduce provider burdens and strengthen program integrity for providers that serve children with rare diseases. Children diagnosed with rare diseases face unique challenges in accessing medically necessary services throughout our state, and the complexity of the issue requires a more detailed evaluation of possible solutions. The request before you will enable the division to identify methods to maximize the number of specialists that serve this population, as well as review avenues for Medicaid policy enhancements, engage with statewide stakeholder groups, and develop a state disease-specific model of care. As a key component of this request, the division will continue to collaborate with the Nevada Rare Disease Advisory Council on the critical assessment of this issue to ensure that children with rare conditions receive necessary services promptly. Our Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy team is available to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So my question, Dr. Capurro, is around clinical trials. So while you have this consultant, is there going to be a conversation around the clinical trial access, transportation for the children that are being faced with rare diseases? Because that is one aspect of the care, and transportation has been a consistent barrier. in trying to make sure that they can get, I guess, the innovations within the treatment for the rare disease that they have?
Thank you for the question. Through you, Chair, to Senator Neal. For the record, I'm Dr. Antonina Capurro. Nevada Medicaid does provide transportation to services for eligible recipients. And we also have Aaron Lynch here with us, who is our medical programs chief, who may be able to provide additional information on the services.
Hi, good morning. This is Erin Lynch. I'm the chief of the medical programs unit. And in the question regarding clinical trials, we already do cover clinical trial services. So if let's say a child is needing services through a clinical trial and they are considered medically necessary, we do cover those services. And that insurance started January 1st, 2021, where we do, or 2022, I'm sorry, where we do cover that clinical trial services.
Thank you for that. Around the date of January 1st, 2022, because I was at, I guess, an event actually a month ago, and I don't think it's clear that this is being covered and that transportation is being covered. I thought it was I thought it was minimum, right? Number one, and I thought there were still consistent barriers in regards to clinical trials when I have been meeting with different stakeholder groups. So I'll talk to you guys offline, and maybe you guys can update me on where you're at and how we can get that information actually in the public's hands so they can use the services.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Miller, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Dondero Loop. My question is that this clearly seems to be a service that's very necessary, but because it's with the ARPA funds and you mentioned that it would be a contractual position, I was just wondering what is how long we see this position being contracted, if there's any plan for sustainability, because I'd hate to see a position like this just for a year or so. So could you just briefly describe that?
Yes, thank you for the question through you, Chair. For the record, this is Dr. Antonina Capurro. This is a contractor position that we will be funding with the state ARPA funds. And that position will be helping us look at best practices and solutions. And from that, from the suggestions and the data that comes forth from that contractor, then we'll be developing a program and a system that will be sustainable through Nevada Medicaid.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any additional questions on G11? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the motion.
Madam Chair, I make the motion to approve G11.
Thank you very much. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes, and we will move on to G13 and 14, which will be heard together.
Good morning again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Dr. Antonina Capurro, Deputy Administrator with the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. Item G14 requests a one-time investment of $10 million of American Rescue Plan dollars to assist Roseman University in launching a College of Medicine. As we know, the need for physicians in the state of Nevada is both acute and well documented. The request before you would enable Roseman University to launch a College of Medicine by providing funding to hire faculty and staff to support the Roseman University College of Medicine during its startup phase and through the accreditation process. The Roseman University College of Medicine is projected to help the state in meeting our healthcare needs, particularly for our most underserved and vulnerable populations, by eventually graduating 100 physicians annually. And they have projected that this will result in a positive economic impact of $1 billion. We are joined today by members of the Roseman University administrative team who are prepared to answer more specific questions. And I'd like to now turn this presentation over to Renee Kaufman, Roseman University president, for additional comments.
Thank you. For the record, Dr. Renee Kaufman. I'm president and co-founder of Roseman University of Health Sciences. In introduction, or by way of context, I would say that Roseman University is the only private not-for-profit university in the state of Nevada that's actually based in the state of Nevada. We are incorporated in the state and have been so since 1999. So we've been around for quite a long time, and we are a Nevada-based institution. As we look to help to alleviate the physician shortage in Nevada, which is dire, we are ranked 97th and 99th respectively with respect to physicians per 100,000 population, and on the 99th in internal medicine, or sorry, primary care physicians per 100,000. It's dire. Every single county in the state shows some shortage of physicians. And let me throw one other statistic at you. Just to maintain our current physician level, which I mentioned was at 97th and 99th, in 99th percentile, we will need to add an additional 1,113 primary care physicians by 2030. So this is a dire need for the state. Roseman stands positioned to help the state with that. But in order to do that, we have to go through the accreditation process with the Liaison Committee on Medical Education. The Liaison Committee on Medical Education, LCME, requires that institutions that are starting a medical school show financial capability to sustain that medical school through at least the first graduating class. With the $10 million that we're requesting, that will expedite our ability to move through the accreditation process with LCME. And I would emphasize that we are indeed asking for one-time funds. As a private institution, as we hire the faculty and the physicians that will be part of this College of Medicine and are able to onboard students, we are able to recognize other revenue streams that will allow us to be sustainable over time. Those revenue streams include tuition, faculty physician practice plans, as well as research grants and contracts. So in our pro forma, we will be sustainable by the time that we graduate the first class, but we need some funds to stand up the initial hiring of faculty to help develop the curriculum and to show the LCME that we do indeed have the financial resources to be able to launch this program successfully. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. I believe Assemblywoman Hadeghi has some.
Thank you, Chair, and I have a couple of questions, if I may. First, I was hoping you could walk us through what the plan is to raise the additional $15.2 million.
Yes, and if I could, I would also just like to kind of give you a little additional context to that. Roseman University has a lot of skin in this game already. So Roseman has a commitment of $18 million in operational support for the College of Medicine through the first graduating class. We have additionally set aside from excess revenues from our operations an additional $15 million, so that gets us to $33 million. We have secured $12 million in philanthropic support, which gets us to $45 million. The estimated amount that we need, or the amount that we have in our financial pro formas to get us through that first accreditation phase is $70 million. So if you take $70 million, subtract 45 from that, you get 25. The 10 that you would potentially be providing us through the legislature today, or the ICP legislative committee today, is 10 million, which gets us down to 15. From that, we are aggressively seeking scholarships from philanthropic sources that will be targeted specifically at Nevada students. Those scholarships would be designed to help offset the tuition differential between what a student might experience at UNLV or UNR to Roseman University, so making it as affordable as UNR and UNLV. In addition, we will be looking at additional philanthropic support from founders. The $10 million that could be appropriated through the ARPA funds will be leveraged with some of those philanthropists who want to see a demonstrated commitment to a College of Medicine at Roseman University as well.
Thank you. And that brings me right into my next question. How do you specifically intend to spend the $10 million that are going to be allocated from the state?
For the record, Dr. Renee Kaufman, the $10 million will be specifically used to help with initial hiring of faculty that are needed to develop the curriculum.
And just one last question, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. I know this is going to be given to you as a grant through DHHS. Is there going to be any reporting requirements?
We'd be happy to, sorry, Dr. Renee Kaufman, for the record, we would be happy to report to the HHS our progress along the accreditation plan and pathway throughout this process.
Madam Chair, is that something that could be given to DHHS and also us? Would that be possible?
I believe so. If they would voluntarily give that to them, then we can do it that way. Otherwise, we would need to require that. So if you would voluntarily give that to DHHS, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That was all my questions.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions? Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Dr. Kaufman. A couple of years ago, I was part of the Community Advisory Board, and there was a move afoot to make sure that the people who are going through all the medical aspects of the medical school, including nurses, to participate in residencies that were in underserved communities. So here's my question. We had, last session, we also had a bill that was designed to give opportunities for more equity, shall I say, with money that was coming in from ARPA, because we know that there were some communities that were more adversely affected by COVID than others. There were, and mostly in BIPOC communities and other low-wealth communities. So here's my question. The money that would come from ARPA, is there any way that you could partner with the Nevada Office of Minority Health and Equity to find out where those communities are and the students that would benefit from this money, would be directed there in those communities so that it would be not just giving away, but giving back? Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Dr. Kaufman, for the record again, I would offer that we already have in place a program that is operational at this point in time, again funded through Roseman University, called the Genesis Program. This is specifically targeted to provide healthcare and wraparound services to areas of high need, underserved need. As the medical school comes online, students will be required to participate in this program and will be placed in a household in one of these underserved areas. And I would add to you that it's not necessarily just the urban underserved, but quite frankly, the rural underserved as well. But students will be placed in these households as part of their curriculum, follow those families, and be embedded in those communities to provide care, but also to incentivize them to stay in those communities to practice after they complete their training.
Thank you. And so I guess the next part of that question was, is there any way to partner with the Office of Minority Health and Equity, not just for the programs that exist now, but there may be other things that they've been able to identify that the students from Roseman would be certainly complement their efforts. And when I think about minority health and equity, I'm not just speaking about ethnicity. I'm speaking about minority populations across the board, whatever that may be. And if you just look at recently passed Nevada Equal Rights Amendment, all of those categories that are there, that's who I'm talking about.
For the record, Dr. Renee Kaufman and Senator Spearman, we will definitely follow up on that. The leadership team that we've already brought on has been with us now for about 2 years, and I think their outreach into those communities is well documented, but we'll certainly take you up on that suggestion to partner with other institutions like that.
Additional questions from the committee? online?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for that information. Yes. Oh, Senator Gocochea, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I was in the sidebar here, and I think avoided another question. I was just curious for this $10 million, and I realize you're a private institution, but would you be able to create something like, Ms. Hoffman, like witchy slots or placements for Nevada students, and again, look at those areas, be they rural or urban minority communities, and I think that would be beneficial. I'm all about med school, but let's get some of these people from Nevada educated in this state, and then we'll work on how we get their residency done.
Renee Kaufman, for the record again, Madam Chair, through you. That is a key component. What you've identified, Senator, is a key component for us. As I mentioned before, we are aggressively pursuing scholarship opportunities that would go and be directed to Nevada students. We currently have in place with some of our existing healthcare academic programs pipelines. Specifically, the one that I'm thinking of right now is with Nevada State College that tracks students from Nevada State College directly into our pharmacy program. So we would look at expanding and enhancing those as we bring our College of Medicine on board for potential medical students as well. And I couldn't agree with you more that the Nevada component to what we want to do as a Nevada-based institution of higher learning is key to what we feel is going to be one of the successful metrics that we have moving forward.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any additional questions
Madam
or
Chair?
comments? Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. Along that same line of thought there regarding Nevada students, we know that this is a public institution, a private institution. So you take applications for med school from throughout this country, perhaps throughout the world. And one of the conversations I've had with some of your representatives is, will not just scholarship applications, perhaps for Nevada students, but will there be any additional weighted weights to a Nevada student applying versus somebody from Indiana or wherever? Will you give prior some sort of rank to Nevada students? Priority. Thank you.
For the record, Renee Kaufman, we will do whatever we can within the confines of accreditation requirements that would allow us to provide preferential admissions to Nevada students. But just as an example, the pipeline program that I mentioned before with Nevada State College provides a set-aside for a certain number of seats for these Nevada State students that meet the criteria for admissions into our pharmacy programs. And I would look forward to be able to replicate that program with our College of Medicine when it comes on board as well.
Thank you for that, but I do know that when I applied to medical school, some of the things that helped get an interview, female at the time, they were looking for that. I was a rural student, all of those things that get weighted when we shake out. All of us were smart, all of us had good grades, but then what separates out everybody else? And so I hopefully that will be part of that process, and I'm looking forward to more. Second thing I have is some concern regarding, we know there's been a lot of discussion, and you mentioned briefly GME, graduate medical education. We know that students stay where they do that second step, that their graduate medical education, more than, say, med school. So we're going to be educating, say, 100 med students from all over the states, and what will encourage them to stay in Nevada. So my question leads to, have you had and developed any community partnerships for part of their training? Senator Spearman asked about community engagement. It sounds like you're going to be putting them in some of these other areas so the students would be engaged there. But what will keep them in Nevada?
Again, Dr. Renee Kaufman, for the record, we have, as part of the outreach for the College of Medicine, developed community partners, probably most specifically with the St. Rose systems in terms of developing residency programs in conjunction with the St. Rose system. But honestly, there is better data around the first-generation college student staying in the state where they were born and raised. And so part of our strategy goes to identifying those first-gen students in particular who, and our leadership team had experience with this at their prior institution, where that first-gen student tends to go back and stay where their family supported them, worked with them, helped them through school oftentimes. So we are specifically, in addition to the residencies, we are specifically targeting those first-gen students so that they will stay here. They already know Nevada, they're invested in Nevada, they will tend to stay here.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing some outcomes. And thank you, Madam Chair, for the question.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or comments from the committee?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
May I just ask one clarifying question, Madam Chair, please?
Madam Chair, there's a question in the
Yes. Senator Krasner, please, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you answering the questions regarding Roseman University. I just want to, a yes or no answer would be fine. Will you give priority in admission to the medical school to students that graduated from Nevada high schools?
For the record, Renee Kaufman, we will do everything that we can within the constraints of accreditation requirements that will allow us to do that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, Assemblywoman Hedeggy.
Thank you so much, Chair. I would like to make a motion to approve but place the state contributions in reserves.
A second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion? Thank you very much. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we will move on to G15 and 16 that will be heard together.
Madam Chair, this is Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. Item 15 is basically the transfer of $11 million from the Lost Revenue Reserve to the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds, to the project category for housing to provide for affordable housing. Item 16 is the actual transfer of those dollars to the West Side Las Vegas mixed use program for housing and commercial development. And I can go in a little more detail on that, but happy to go into number 15, which is really the mechanical ability of transferring those funds to make it available for the project. So if there's any questions on that, we can go into that, and then I'll go into the actual project.
Thank you very much. Senator Scheibel, did you have a question?
Sure. I can go ahead and ask now if you could just give us some information about how the project's been developed and the coordination efforts with Clark County, please.
Certainly. So I understand there's no comment on 15, and then if not, I'll go into 16 and how we developed the project. So this is a mixed use project. It's a micro business park along with affordable housing. The $11 million that you see here will be partnering with Clark County. Clark County put $15 million into the project. They're leveraging land that they already have in that area. Our funding, the $11 million that is listed in item 16, will only go to the affordable housing, 60% AMI, average median income restricted units for the project. The other part of it is that this really provides an opportunity in the historic West Side to do a mixture of commercial and retail along with housing. So the residents will get the benefit of being able to basically have kind of a workspace, commercial space, retail space within the housing project for that area, which I think, given my background as a city manager for years, this is really kind of a project that's great for urban area, downtown urban area. The project did not get considered by the initial Home Means Nevada initiative because of the mixed unit use business portion of that, the retail commercial space that's being built along with it. So we actually felt, working with Clark County and Commissioner McCurdy, that this was really an excellent project to be able to be considered. And so Clark County was willing to put 15 million along with the land to be able to work with, to kind of expand the affordability of the units from, so it really includes 60% AMI or below, or between 60 and 80%, which is really kind of in the workforce housing area venue. So we were able to partner with them and consider this project, and that's why it's coming to you now and was not part of the initial Home Means Nevada initiative. Clark County has done a wonderful job in being able to get separate funding for the commercial side of that, to be able to leverage land in that area, and to be able to put 15 million into it. And so what that does with their additional dollars, it actually helps keep the rents low. It keeps the debt service down so that they can maintain these units as affordable units through the 20-year life of the overall project. Happy to answer specific questions, but let me go through a little bit about what will consist with the residential units. Complex will consist of the commercial building, as I suggested, and really a term of art garden style residential apartments containing 60 housing units, all of which are going to be new construction. The apartments will have common recreation space, a clubhouse with a computer room, fitness, mailroom, and small kitchen. The commercial building will have retail on the first floor and co-working space, maker space, entrepreneurial space really, and offices for the micro business initiative on the second floor. There'll be a community and performance space adjacent to the commercial space, which will be available for the residents to use. There's no existing buildings on the site, so this is all new construction. It will start in 2024, so the money will be committed to that time. Groundbreaking for the project, as I said, will be in 2024, and all funds will be committed prior to 2024 and expended prior to December 2026. And lease up for the housing portion of the project is projected to be by July 2025. So this project will meet the criteria for the use of the ARPA funding, but also it'll provide a much needed commercial and housing balance within the downtown district. So we really support this project. We think it's a great idea. We think it's very beneficial to put the ARPA funding for this project. And once again, the housing funding that we'll see for this for our business industry portion of this will be the 60% AMI or below. So with that, I've been happy to answer any questions.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you so much. Could you please discuss the anticipated timeline for construction of the housing units and how the agency would ensure that the ARPA funds are committed and expended within that necessary time frame?
They're intending to have the funding committed by 2024, and we will actually be really monitoring those funds as we do all the projects to make sure that they get started within the period of time. And we have that on any project that we do, housing project, we do have a timeline, and we are very aggressive in making sure that those funds are utilized within that period of time. The timeline, I think, is very reasonable for the construction of the project, because the project area is vacant land, so there's no demolition, there's no other issues to get started on that. The project area is owned by Clark County, so there's no title issues, other issues that could hold that up. Then going forward, they're looking at a leasing plan and construction and having it all done by 2026. That gives about a 2.5-year period starting from now with the allocation of those funds to get it done. I think that's usually we look at between 16 to 18 months to get a project going. So I think this really falls within an excellent timeline to have it started and completed on time.
Okay, thank you very much. Senator Harris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that presentation. I was hoping maybe you could speak just a little bit about how contractors will be selected, and I'm really specifically interested in whether there will be an intention to include a diverse community of contractors as part of this process.
Terry Reynolds, once again, Director for Department of Business and Industry. Unfortunately, this is a Clark County project, and I don't know if there's a representative from Clark County on there, but they will be doing the actual getting the construction contracts, both for the commercial side and the housing side. We are basically providing funding for that and funding for a portion of just our portion of the housing portion of that. But we do work with making sure that we have A, qualified contractors, B, that we have that they have minority components within either from vendors or part of the project components to make sure that we see a diverse group of contractors being able to utilize this money for housing projects across the board. And I'm not talking about just this one, but the projects that we do, as we do probably 22 to 2,300 units a year in terms of that. So we're very cognizant of being able to make sure that we have A, qualified builders that can perform, and B, that we see a diverse contractor profile that do these types of projects.
Thank you for that answer. I would just encourage you to tie as many diversity metrics as possible and as you see fit in order to ensure that that there's some intention put into the selection process. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions up north, online? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, this is Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno. I would move to approve, but with one caveat: with the long-term project that this is, have some reporting back from the agency and the county to see the progress that they've making on it.
I think that's fair. Thank you very much. Is there a second?
A second.
An Assemblywoman, before I leave that motion, would you like that annual reporting, or how would you like that reporting done?
Annual reporting would be good.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Reynolds, does that work with your schedule?
This is Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. Yes, it does. And we will continue to do our reporting on the ARPA fund projects to be able to get those to you on a regular basis, either a quarterly or semi-annual basis, so that you can keep track of the progress of all of our projects as they go through. But we'll be happy to do that specifically too on this one.
Thank you very much. So I have a motion with annual reporting, a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Reynolds, before you leave your spot there, would you like to jump to H135, sir?
Yes, thank you. This is Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. This agenda item relates to the acceptance of $29.6 million of outstanding emergency rental assistance funds to continue the support of the CHAP, the CARES Housing Assistance Program, rental assistance program in Clark County. Since the beginning of the pandemic, the division has provided over $200 million in conduit funding through the state to support rental assistance. The award represents the final allocation of federal funding for this process. Should the committee approve the funding, it will be immediately advanced to Clark County Social Services to continue the unimpeded assistance of the CHAP program. With that brief introduction, we're happy to stand ready to answer any questions. I would point out, though, that of the $124 million provided on ERA1, $116 million was expended in rental assistance, representing 103% of the funding, accounting for administrative costs. I really commend our staff, the county staff, because we were able to keep the administrative costs to around 7%. The other 3% that was allocated for administrative costs was put back into the rental assistance program. So with that, we have about 99.1% of the initial 124 million was spent entirely. So this is the remaining amount to be expended of the program that was allocated.
Thank you very much. I believe Speaker Yeager has a question.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you for the update, Mr. Reynolds. I was just curious how long you anticipate this additional funding will last to help Nevadans with rental support needs.
Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. This allocation of funding has to be utilized rather quickly through the end of the year. We anticipate that Treasury will allocate additional funding in the next couple federal budget years for this, but for this actual allocation to the state of Nevada has to be used rather quickly. Most of the areas that we have allocated to throughout the state have utilized and closed their funding. Clark County still had remaining needs, and so this funding will go exclusively to Clark County to finish that up. But we anticipate additional ERA funding, or emergency rental assistance funding, continuing on for the next few years. What that's going to be and what it's going to look like, I don't know yet, but we should know here shortly.
Could I ask a follow-up, please?
Certainly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Reynolds, I hear you that we are hopeful that we'll get some additional funding from the federal government to be able to continue this kind of assistance, but in the absence of that happening, or if there's a delay in getting that money, can you speak to any other programs that may be available to help folks with rental needs until we get additional federal funding?
There has been over the past through, Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. There has been specific target funding for very low AMI, 30% or below, or people that basically have been unhoused and need rental assistance. And so we anticipate seeing program funding in that area. Is it going to be as extensive as what the last two ERA fundings have been over the years? I don't know, and I think that's an open question, but I think there will be funding to support emergency rental assistance funding for the state, and especially for the urban areas within the state. So generally, I can't give you specifics on that, but we'd be happy to keep the committee informed, legislature informed as to what we'll be seeing in the future.
Thank you very much. Additional questions on this particular item?
Madam Chair?
Oh, yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you very much. According to what we've received, can you explain why apparently the Nevada Rural Housing Authority and the Reno Housing Authority have both closed because there was lack of demand, and it's only apparently there's only demand in Clark County. I need a little bit clearer explanation on that.
This is Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. I think you'd have to actually direct your questions to Clark County on that because as I indicated, the Nevada Division of Housing is really, we're only the conduit for providing this funding through to the local county issues. I will tell you that because of I would say that, and this is really speculation on my part, but I think it does hold some water, is that the unemployment rates in Clark County were higher than the rest of the state. As you're probably aware, we have unemployment rates in the rural area and in Washoe County around 3%, 3.5%, where Clark County's unemployment rate for a long time was over 5%. It's now still around 4.5% to 5%. And so because of that unemployment rate, I think the need has been higher in Clark County, and that would be speculation on my part. But I think that does hold some water that you're seeing that. So where the other areas in the state have had very low or moved to very low unemployment rates, that we're not seeing the need as generally as much as we are within the urban area of Clark County.
Additional question, Madam Chair? So would you also kind of clarify that this money that is being paid out goes directly to the landlords, or is Clark County then distributing it to the landlords and not to individual households? So how is this money then dispersed?
Okay, Terry Reynolds, once again, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. The money is dispersed. It can be dispersed through vouchers. It can be dispersed through landlords. There's also a provision in here that another agenda item that talks about allocation to landlords within here. So it depends on the circumstances, but generally these types of funding are going out. The ERA funding goes directly to support very low income individuals to provide rental assistance for them. We do have a portion of that where a landlord can come in and apply and get funding directly to them for that. So I can give you a kind of a breakdown of that. I'm happy to provide that.
Thank you, because I would definitely want to make sure that the money's going to the intent that if it's distributed to the individual household, then it does indeed get to the landlord. So I'd love to see the numbers. And the final question I have is, we have numbers of about 4,698 households have received this funding, and then there's a 55,000 households are anticipated will receive that. Are those numbers like one-time payment for rent, or is it really just 10,000 households that had rent assistance 100 times? So how is that broken down?
Terry Reynolds, Director of Business and Industry, for the record. That includes both types of payments. It includes, the one-time or a couple-time assistance to individuals who needed it for a period of time. They may be between jobs and needed rental assistance for that time. It also includes where there's long-term assistance where somebody's out of work for a long period of time and needs assistance. So it really is both. We are in the process of getting, as you probably saw in the information, we're getting the final quarter of the year put together to get the overall view. We do have it through the third quarter, but not through into the fourth quarter. So we'll get those figures to you so that you can see the breakdown, and we can get you a breakdown through Clark County as to how they've looked at the allocations and if they've broken it down. But I think they're looking at it from a household standpoint. But whether there's multiple payments that last over a long period of time, or if they're just temporary for only like a month or two.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or concerns on this item? Okay, with that, I will take a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion from Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno,
A second.
second from Senator Spearman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much. And Mr. Reynolds, before we lose you, we have one more just informational item, I believe O.
Yes, let me get to that point. Terry Reynolds again, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. This is the announcement that we've done the final awarding of our projects for the Home Means Nevada initiative across the 4 categories of funding: new development, rehabilitation, homeownership opportunities, and land acquisition. Taken in totality, the awards provide the creation of 2,800 units, with over 1,800 of those units serving very low, extremely low income populations, 900 units to specifically serve seniors, the preservation, of over 1,000 units, which will also serve those lower income groups, and home ownership opportunities and rehabilitation projects to assist 1,500 Nevada households. So with that, we have been able to allocate all the funding. There is a breakdown in your report of all the categories and who received the funding. There's a couple things that I wanted to mention here. One is that I really wanted to thank, on behalf of the Department of Business and Industry and the Housing Division, the faith that you have demonstrated in us and in the work and allocation of this process. It literally involved really a group of people who agreed to help evaluate these projects. It also involved really collaboration with the cities and the counties, both urban and rural, within the state of Nevada, to be able to really look at their needs and how we would allocate the funding. As you know, for example, Clark County received their own funding directly and allocated funding for projects. We actually partnered with them to be able to basically stretch those dollars that we received as through the state, as well as the dollars that the local communities received to be able to fund projects. In addition to that, as you're aware, the state gets an allocation, what we call volume cap, which is the authority to be able to issue tax-free bonds, and we issue bonds for housing. Since 2014, we have allocated about $1.9 billion worth of volume cap for housing. To date, we spent about $1.6 billion for that. We have about 260 some million that we will carry forward to be able to help our patchwork quilt to be able to help fund these projects. So what you see here is the direct allocation for different categories of projects, but it doesn't stop there, because we also partner with the money that was allocated through Clark County or Washoe County or the rural areas to be able to provide additional dollars to make those projects work. So from our standpoint, this was a very successful initiative. We think it's going to have a profound effect on housing, because we're accelerating housing units within the state of Nevada, preservation of units, and also the ability to rehab units to keep people in their homes and provide kind of an age-in-place platform for several people that would have to move out or had problems in living within their home. So these are all, I think, very good projects going forward for our state. Doesn't stop here, though. We have, I believe the figure right now, about 2,200, just under 2,300 units being developed in the next, that'll be opened up by 2024, in addition to these units. So we have really accelerated our housing and affordable housing projects within the state of Nevada through the utilization of these funds that have come in both to the state and both to local entities. Be
Thank you
happy to
very
answer
much.
any questions on this.
Thank you very much. Senator Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Director Reynolds, just really quick, on the land acquisition piece that has the 40 million attached to it, do you think that there'll still be some funds left in that by the end of the legislative session, like October of 23? Or is that all going to be used up in the current, or let me rephrase, has it already been dedicated, the land acquisition portion of it?
Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. Thank you for that question, because I want to clarify some things that I think it's very important. When we looked at the allocation of putting money into land, we wanted to make sure that when we allocated the money to land acquisition, that there was going to be a project tied to that, and that there would actually, the land was actually going to be utilized within a period of time that would get housing projects. We didn't want to see long-term land banking without having affordable housing projects developed with that. So to answer the question in two parts, one, it has been committed, but we're looking at the ability of those allocations, the awards, to be able to be utilized during the time frame. And if something happens and they're not able to be utilized during that time frame, and we should know that within, because there'll be kind of a drop dead point where they'll, it makes sense that they'll be able to meet the time frame to be able to go forward with that. If they don't, and this is true with all these projects, if they don't go forward or have trouble going forward or something happens to the project, we will be back and reallocating those funds to another project. And we had projects that fell below our cutoff line, and that we think there still are good projects that we would look to allocate to those projects. So to answer your question, yes, there'll probably be some reallocation on that, but at this point in time, until we look and see how they get started, see if there's any issues with them going forward, we won't know that for a period of time. We may have projects during the time that you're indicated in 23 that something happens and they're not able to go forward, or they want to pull back on, and then we would reallocate those funds. So can't give you specifics at this time, but that's the process that we're going to look at in monitoring to make sure that the money does not go unused, that it is allocated, because there were, we were oversubscribed about 4 times in terms of our applications to our awards. And so there's still good projects out there that just didn't meet or just were under the cutoff line that we would look at and go back and try to fund if that happened.
Thank you for that, Director Reynolds. I just wanted to bring up to you really quickly, and then we can talk offline. I think, well, I was asking this question about the land acquisition piece and whether or not there's going to be any reallocation, or I guess, some land banking that may be in existence at the end of 23, because I think I sent you the documentary for Windsor Park, and I've been looking at trying to figure out how to, creatively think about land acquisition for those homeowners that are there to be able to move somewhere else. And I don't know if you ever saw that documentary, but that is a very special group, and that has been long-term affected. And I know that some of the private activity bonds and the local municipalities share in these dollars. And so I want to try to have a conversation about some kind of special way to assist these families. Like if I end up doing something in a different way through a special act to try to figure out how to leverage for those families, I want to have that conversation, right? I mean, we talk about rehab, we talk about families and opportunities, and these are families that had limited habitability for their homes over 30 years.
Terry Reynolds, Director for the Department of Business and Industry. Yes, I did watch the program that you sent me on Windsor Park, and I will tell you that one of the benefits of working with over the pandemic and with the program activities that we had in housing is we worked very closely with all the local housing, Reno Housing Authority, Southern Nevada Housing Authority, Clark County, City of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, and other entities within the state. We are continuing that approach and having calls every couple of weeks with all those entities, our working group, and so it's really a dynamic process. And so I think that there is room to be able to partner with local government from the state standpoint and be able to try to come up with an approach to be able to fund these type of projects. So I don't think we're precluded because if something doesn't get spent, that we can't reallocate those funds, or if something does get spent and that money's not there, that we can still use the available means that we have for housing through volume cap, through the allocation that we work with on a regular basis with the county and the cities on what they get in terms of their volume cap to be able to do housing projects. So I think it's very possible to do that. I don't think it always just hinges on the reallocation of these funds. Obviously, that would help if we could do that. But I think that there is opportunity going forward because of what we've done and what we've set aside for housing projects with our allocation. We've front loaded that, as you're aware, with several hundreds of millions of dollars of our volume cap authorization to be able to do these types of projects. And so we have that ability to go out and work with local government, local housing authorities to be able to fund new projects. So we wouldn't have to just stop and say everything is allocated, we can't do anymore. We're going to be able to continue the process and manage those funds to be able to work with our local partners.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Madam Chair. I look forward to working with you on this. The local municipalities sometimes don't have that specific intent that I have, but I hope to come into direct alignment, or at least somehow statutorily make that alignment happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Neal. You said a whole lot right there. We'll take it. All right, and this was an informational item only, so there is no motion needed. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we will now move on to G17. Speaker Buckley, welcome, welcome, and thanks for your patience as we got to you.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Barbara Buckley. I'm the Executive Director of Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. And I believe up in Carson City, we have Melanie Young to kick us off.
Still good morning. Melanie Young.
There you are.
Administrator for the Deputy Administrator for the Division of Child and Family Services. For the record, thank you for the opportunity to bring this request before you. This request is for the Las Vegas Resiliency Center and originally came before this committee in October, and the funds were placed in reserve for the capital improvement project. So at this time, I would turn it back over to Barbara Buckley to go through the details of the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We are so appreciative for the approval of the funds for this very important project. As you all will recall from the last meeting, this will allow the construction of a Victims of Crime Center in the Las Vegas community. It will be the permanent home for the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center, which will serve all victims of violent crime in our community. We will also be able to consolidate other legal aid programs, such as our program assisting victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, and our unit preventing exploitation in the guardianship system. At the combined center, we will have State of Nevada Behavioral Health Resources, State of Nevada Victims of Crime Compensation Program employees, a representative from Clark County Emergency Management, if God forbid there's another incidence of mass violence, as well as an advocate with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. It will be a transformative one-stop shop, and the location is directly across from the Legal Aid Center existing building at 8th and Charleston. It was a U.S. Bank building. The branch closed down. And I was the first call that the U.S. Bank president received when I saw the notice. And when we told them the vision for what this would be, they gave us a depreciated value price. So we probably received a $2 million contribution from U.S. Bank right then and there. So this committee approved the request at the last meeting and said, come back when you got all the money together and are ready to build. Well, we're back. We're ready to build. We provided in the backup an $8 million line of credit, which we'll plan to retire through philanthropy, but we want to begin construction. We already received the $3 million from Congresswoman Titus's appropriation, which is being processed through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We are beginning environmental work on the land. We are ready to proceed with construction. This transfer will ensure there are no delays. I'm happy to answer any questions and would appreciate your support.
Thank you very much for that information. I believe Assemblywoman Peters has a question.
Thank you, Chair, and it's great to see you, Speaker Buckley. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of information on how you plan to pay back any amount borrowed against that $8 million line of credit.
Yes, thank you through you, Madam Chair, to Assemblywoman Peters. We plan on retiring the line of credit through philanthropy. So we believe we will receive strong philanthropic support for this project. And as a matter of fact, I've already met with a couple of donors who are quite interested and will be getting back to me in January. But as we retire it, what we will be doing too as well is as we receive money, that will be utilized first to reduce the line of credit. So that's our long-term plan. And but fortunately, because of reserves, because of the amount of the generous discount received by U.S. Bank, we are in a very good position to begin construction.
Thank you. Any additional questions?
Madam Chair?
Comments? Yes, Senator Titus, is that you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
Thank you for the information. My question is really for DCFS. We have victims of crime throughout our state, not just in Clark County, and I'm just wondering what other possibilities, or is there any other monies being directed towards, or is there any other agencies throughout the state that can help victims of crimes? I think they've done a stellar job in Clark County, but just curious about throughout the state resources.
Good morning. No, good afternoon. Cindy Pitlock, Administrator of the Division of Child and Family Services. Through you, Chair, to Dr. Titus. That's a great question. And the Victims of Crime program is a statewide program. And we are really thrilled to partner with many entities with the victims of crime. For example, St. Jude, Division of Welfare and Supportive Services, various other, how many vendors do we have that we have contracts with through the VOCA account. We could get that number for you, but the point being is that we have formed relationships over many years with community providers to step up with us in this space, and it truly is a statewide program. The opportunity that we have specifically for Las Vegas is to actually embed some of our employees in that area, so when a victim walks in the door, they receive a myriad of services right in that one space. But I do assure you that the VOCA program is a statewide program that we have really built out over many, many years in coordination with many community providers statewide.
Thank you for that. At some point, perhaps you could get us a list of the people that have actually been recipients or helped, and actually look at the numbers throughout our state so we can kind of see where this is going and who you helped and where's a major need. So thank you for that.
For the record, Cindy Pitlock.
Speaker Buckley, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you for that comment, and we will do that because we could also partner together and see perhaps where there are any gaps and maybe where we can build out more community partners, and you might be really aligned to help us do that. So I'll make sure that information gets to you. Thank you.
Speaker Buckley, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also wanted to add another comment with regard to that. The State of Nevada Victims of Crime Compensation Program receive applications, and there are certain buckets of eligibility for victims, but they don't have the ability to offer resources, navigation, comfort. So they often turn to the Vegas Strong Resiliency Center and will ask us to follow up with a rural victim. And we will, because we have the skills, we have the ability to do that. And while there are different organizations funded throughout the state to serve victims of crime, primarily they help with victims of domestic violence, some sexual assault, some human trafficking, but there's very few other services for things like shootings, home invasions, assaults, and the devastation, elder abuse, crimes against the homeless. So those are some of the services that we're prioritizing because of the gaps. So Senator Titus, we're happy to receive referrals. If you have a victim and they can't find any services in the rurals, we will help.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you all for what you're doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you much for that information. Additional questions from the committee? All right, with that, I will take a motion from Senator Schreiber. Did you have one additional question? No, I was going to move to. Oh, okay. I was calling on Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Thank you very much, Senator Spearman. Any discussion? With that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Thank you, Speaker Buckley, for visiting with us today. Yeah, well, sorry, Speaker Buckley. That was an appropriation in like 2009, I think. All right, we will now go to G181, or 18, excuse me.
18.1.
18.1, my eyes, all the way through. But I will warn you, we may have a lunch break in the middle of this long list of items. So we'll see how far we can press through, and then we may take a lunch break. So let's start with G18.1. Welcome, Ms. Stevenson. You may go through them all, and we'll see if we can get this done. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. For the record, Amy Stevenson, Director for Governor's Finance Office. I was actually just going to lump them all together, if I may, or do you want me to go through each and every one of them?
No, that's fine. I just was thinking about questions and comments afterwards, and I didn't know the time element, and so I was just trying to give us a little bit of flexibility, but I'd like to get through them all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So in front of you is 115 work programs for the repayment of furloughs for state employees at approximately $35 million. These are for the furloughs that were taken in 2021. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Madam Chair.
Senator Gokachia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just want to make sure the information we have in front of us, it looks like this will only go out to active employees that are presently employed, that they can't have either retired or left the service. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Senator Gokachia, yes, that is correct.
Okay. And I clearly support this. This is going to be a good bonus for the state employees. However, it's just a Band-Aid. Folks, we all know we're really in trouble, and if we don't do something with the benefit program, and when I first saw it, my first reaction was, well, no, this is just a waste of money. We need to put it where it really matters, and that is in the benefit program and salaries going forward. We're sitting here with, a 40% vacancy rate. We can't survive here and provide the service. So I will support it, but I want to make sure it is only going to active employees. And with that, I thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gokachia. I believe Assemblyman Watts has a question.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I agree with my colleague, Senator Gokachia, that I hope that this is just the start, and do want to say that I don't see this as a bonus. I think this is respecting the sacrifice that our state employees have made throughout the last couple of years to help our state and every resident get through the pandemic, and am glad that we are able to, this is one small way and hopefully the first of many to thank all of our state employees for all their hard work, often going above and beyond to help the people of our state. I did have a quick question, and that is, what do you expect the timeline to be once this is approved to actually get the furlough reimbursements out to our employees?
Thank you for the question, Chair, through you to Mr. Watts. My name is Mandy Bosmith. I serve the state as the administrator for the Division of Human Resource Management in the Department of Administration. To answer the question, pardon me, I start talking and now I can't talk. I apologize. We, in Central Payroll, which is the payroll center for most of the executive branch departments, we are shooting for the first paycheck in January, but it may be the second paycheck in January due to uploading files to the 2 software programs that we have to upload to make sure that they're syncing so we can make sure that they get where they get. So it may be the second paycheck in January. In terms of those other departments, for example, the Nevada System of Higher Education, the judicial folks, they have their own payroll systems, and they will pay in January. I don't have a specific pay date, but they will pay in January.
Thank you for that clarification. Since we're here in the middle of December, I was hoping that we could say happy holidays, but it is still something. I think that clarity is helpful for our knowledge and for our state employees to plan around. So thank you for the question, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Assemblywoman Hattigi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I am just going to say ditto to what my colleague mentions about state employees, but I did have one question for you. I know there's 115 work programs in front of us, but there's an additional 210 that didn't have to come before IFC for a total of 325 work programs. Can you let me know what that is in number of state employees? Because I think each work program is equivalent to one state agency. So what is that total number of state employees?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, to Assemblywoman Howdy, Amy Garland, or excuse me, it is a rough morning or afternoon already. Amy Stevenson, Director for Governor's Finance Office.
Go ahead.
It's been one of those weeks. It is approximately 14,851 employees.
Thank you so much, and you nailed my last name.
Thank you very much. And I don't think there's one of us up here that doesn't recognize the state employees' worth in our infrastructure and what we do. Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And my question is, can you tell us how many days our over 14,000 employees are being reimbursed?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Amy Stevenson, Director of GFO, for the record. That is 48 hours that they were mandated to take. So we're reimbursing the 48 hours.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Any additional questions?
Madam Chair?
Concerns up north? Yes, Senator Titus.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this. I think I echo everybody that our state employees do deserve this reimbursement at this time, with recognition that and across the board evaluation of our employment policies and salaries needs to be done. However, I have a couple other questions. So we have 325 different agencies. So are all the state employees included in this then, including NCHI employees, judicial employees? So we're looking at, because I see many departments that are not listed here.
Thank you, Senator Titus. Through you, Madam Chair, to Senator Titus, Amy Stevenson, Director of GFO. It includes everybody. That's NCHI, judicial, legislative, council bureau, staff, and executive branch. So it includes everybody.
So with this 48 hours that we're looking at reimbursing them, will there be payments into their PERS at the current percent? How does this all then get distributed?
Thank you for that question. Through you, Madam Chair, to Senator Titus. Actually, AB 3 in the 2020 special session that mandated the furloughs specifically stated that the PERS contributions would remain whole. So even though employees took up to 48 hours of furlough time, the PERS contributions that were made on their behalf were as if they were working those 48 hours. So employees are whole in terms of their retirement.
Great. So that won't be deducted from the top of this furlough reimbursement. No, it will not. Great. Thank you. And then my final question is: it's clearly stated that only current employees that had to experience the furloughs will be reimbursed. Why? There are many folks who left this employment in the state of Nevada because they were frustrated with the furloughs. They couldn't support their families. So we have. I feel that there's folks out there that were charged this, that suffered through this, that we're not reimbursing. Is there some limit to why we can't reimburse those that were affected at the time that they were employed for the state?
I'll take this one, Senator Titus. Ivana Cancella, for the record, Governor's Chief of Staff. There's a logistical and a philosophical reason for why retirees who left before the furlough repayment will go through, and folks who just left state service to pursue another opportunity or just left state service, why folks who are not currently working in state service did not get allocated into the pool of folks who will be reimbursed for the furloughs. Tracking down the entire population of people who have retired or who have left state service is challenging. And in the process of the mechanics of that, there is a risk that some of these dollars could end up sitting in a fund waiting for people to collect them, specifically in the unclaimed property fund. That's directly against ARP rules. We can't have money sitting in a fund unused. So that, on top of the mechanics of actually finding folks and making sure they can get those dollars, made it so there were some logistical questions that we weren't sure we could overcome in time to allocate, to actually distribute those dollars, and that there would be potentially some challenges to ARP eligibility should we pursue that path. On a philosophical level, and this mattered less than the logistics of it, we made the decision to pursue these dollars as a way not only to thank people for their sacrifice and to do the right thing, but also in the hopes of retaining employees through what I hope will be a robust budget discussion related to salaries and benefits next session. We have record vacancies across state government, and anything we can do to keep people in those jobs as we get through the winter and need snowplowers at NDOT and we need more corrections officers at NDOC, that we do that with as much force as possible. So that's how we landed here.
Thank you. Thank you for clarification. And philosophically, I'm on the same page that you are as far as the logistics of it. Just wanted to make sure there was a record of it. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions or concerns with this item? Go ahead, Assemblyman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it's not a question, it's just a quick comment. I'm encouraged to hear that I think we all realize there's more work to be done. This is a small first step, but you cannot start the journey without the first step, and I look forward to several more steps during the next session. But I wanted to just recognize how monumental this program is. We have, item 18 with however many hundreds of work programs. And so we just wanted to thank the governor's office and his finance team and our legislative staff for making this happen, because as you can see, it was not a quick thing to do, and it caused a lot of extra work for our folks, but certainly well worth it. But wanted to recognize those long hours and the brain power that went into figuring out how to do this.
I appreciate that, Speaker Yeager. You're absolutely right. This was not just a quick fix. This was a lot of hours on our staff's part, so appreciate that. Any additional questions from the committee? Okay, with that, Assemblywoman, I would take a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I energetically move to approve this agenda item.
Thank you very much. I'll take a second.
And I energetically second.
Thank you very much, Senator Spearman, and I energetically say, all those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
A little more energy there. All those opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Motion passes. And with that, we are going to pause and take a lunch break. So we will see you all about 12:50. It might be 2 minutes before, but about 12:50 we'll be back. Thank you very much.